ELD hard enforcement begins. Carriers seek better driver retention methods in the capacity crunch. XPO joins the digital freight booking push. Reefer rates climb out of the Salinas, Central, and Imperial Valleys in California. I'm JP.
And I'm Chad.
And we discuss all this and more on this week's episode of What the Truck.
JP, I see that you're drinking your standard go-to two-hearted ale. You are a man that sticks with his guns. You don't like variety.
Yeah, I'm kind of like Ernest Hemingway, the author of the famous short story, The Big Two-Hearted River. Named after, of course, the same river in Michigan's Upper Peninsula that this wonderful beer is named after.
Once upon a time,
Can I give you a quote from the story?
By all means.
Nick was happy as he crawled inside his tent. It had been a hard trip. He was very tired. He had made his camp. He was settled. Nothing could touch him. It was a good place to camp.
And that is how you feel after drinking two-hearted ale, apparently.
That's right.
Once upon a time when you were in grad school, I understand, it was an inexpensive beer. Unfortunately, now it has tripled in price.
Yes, at the legendary Saba's happy hour of my happy near decade at the University of Michigan, we could get draft pints of it for $2.50. What do you got, Chad?
Well, I've got the kind of a beer that's a reflection of my current state, which is Scatterbrain by Bearded Iris Brewing in Nashville, Tennessee. They claim here passion fruit, pine, and gray matter, and I like that.
Gray matter.
Yeah,
I see.
I have no idea. That's not the part that's enticing me. But you know what all beer is made out of?
Hops, barley, wheat. I don't know.
Water, malt, hops, and yeast. It's all really about the hops and the yeast. Surprisingly, it's
not about the water?
Of course it's about the water. I just mean like in terms of, finding the variety. Anyway, I think that they must have some pretty unique, piney, passion fruity hops in this variety. It's pretty good. I like Bearded Iris. They ironically claim that that you should cultivate variety, and a lot of their beers taste similar, but in a good way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like that.
All right, well, why don't we move on to the topics of the day? Before we do that, let's play a little game, shall we? As we always do.
Oh, God.
This one is, let's play Riddle Me This. Shall we?
Sure, Chad.
Okay. All right, JP. Well, I've got a few riddles for you. Let's see how you do. Ready? Don was driving his semi under an overpass when suddenly he came to a screeching halt. Don wasn't paying enough attention and inadvertently drove under the overpass that was just barely as high as his truck. The semi was wedged so tightly that he could not go forward or backward. A fellow trucker came by and told him how he could easily get the semi out from under the bridge. What did he suggest?
I think he suggested unhooking the tractor from the trailer? No?
That is not what he suggested. I mean, he wouldn't be able to, move forward. He would, maybe get out of his jam, maybe.
Okay, what's the answer?
Lower the air, let air out of the tires, which lowers the truck.
What the truck?
All right. Well, that was good try, dude.
Thanks.
Number 2.
It's gonna be great. I can already tell.
A truck driver is going down a one-way street the wrong way and passes at least 10 cops. Why is he not caught?
He's a fire truck driver.
No, good try.
I think that's a legit answer, though.
He is actually just walking down the road. He's a truck driver who's walking. He's not breaking any road.
Nice,
yeah,
nice.
that
Okay.
one got you right.
Yeah.
That was kind of a trick one. Here's another trick one, and that's a hint. Number 3 here. There once was a truck. When you go out and I come in, what will become of the truck?
It turns into a trick.
Dung, ding, 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 ding. Very nice. Trick, as you take out the U and you put in the I. Very nice. All right, number 4. A man was driving a truck. His lights were not on. The moon was not out. Up ahead was a woman hitchhiking. How did he see her? Ding, ding, ding,
she was standing at her street light. I don't know.
It was a sunny day. All right, and finally,
Oh my God. Why is this happening to me?
You'll like this one. At an international trucking convention, some American truckies are chatting. A new group walks into the room. Instantly, one of the Americans says, those must be the Aussies. I'm going over for a chat. All of the people at the convention are wearing identical shirts without local variations. There's no national flags, etc. So how did the American deduce that the new group were Australian? And no, he didn't hear them speak.
They're upside down.
No, they were not upside down. That's close. You're on the right track.
So what were they doing when he walked up?
They were chatting.
Was it?
And it just instantly, one of the Americans says, this must be the Aussies.
I don't know, man.
Because he seems so disappointed. Because the right side of their faces were more tanned than the left. Yeah, that's an Aussie thing.
Right, because you're on the other side of the truck, and therefore your sun. Yeah.
Yeah. So hey, good, not bad. 1 out of 5. All right. So thanks for playing Riddle Me This, and stay tuned till next time. In the meantime, we've got some pretty cool headlines of the week, JP. The first one that, of course, that we're angling in on is the ELD hard enforcement began. It began, well, it's supposedly.
Yeah, April 1st, right?
Yeah, and today is April the 11th. So have we seen much disruption to date?
Not really. That's kind of been interesting, and it's been counter to a lot of the. It's been counter to.
I think it's the 12th. But anyway, sorry.
What? Oh, sorry.
I don't think it's the 11th. It's the 12th. I've lost track of my days.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, hard enforcement started on the 1st. And we haven't really seen that much disruption. We haven't seen that much volatility in the spot rate market at all, especially compared to the beginning in December when carriers and shippers really started pricing in this loss of productivity per truck. And one of the we have a couple of different theories about why this has been not there hasn't been complete chaos. One is that...
Yeah, what are your theories?
So one is that compliance has gone up into the 90% range. And...
I've heard that, and I've heard people question that. I wonder if it's really...
Well, I think Kevin Hill at Carrier Lists has done a pretty good job of I think he surveys 900 carriers a week and asks them about compliance and all different kinds of things. And so these are sort of his numbers. And we also publish these on FreightWaves, so check them out.
Yeah, and Ken Evans with Connexial, CEO of Connexial, disagrees with them, but or he just doubts them. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, even my conversation with Kevin, he thought there would be a bigger disruption. But I think what's really happened is that, first of all, spot rates jumped up high. In the last quarter of 2017, they're softening a little bit. We're not seeing a whole lot of upward movement. They're kind of going back down to their normal post-ELD December levels. And one of the reasons why we think that's happening is because, we're in bid season for contracts. Mm-hmm. So big carriers have gone to their shippers and have said, hey, look, we're going to need, double-digit rate increases. for this year. We got high demand, we've got low capacity. Things are going to get more expensive, and by and large, they got those increases they asked for, and so right now, they feel like the contract freight is fairly priced. So people, we see big carriers.
Yeah, rates have already kind of gone up.
Yeah.
A
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Contract
due
freight,
to a lot of factors.
Freight is a lot more expensive than it was last year. And we even see big carriers that we've talked to moving capacity out of dedicated as those contracts going into more short-term contracts. So the point is that they're making good money doing contracts for what they think the market can bear, and that's why they're not rejecting those loads and then going to the spot market.
Well, and I'm just coming back from the TIA conference, and it was one of the questions I put to basically anybody that I saw there, and the general answer that you get for the not super informed, but just those that are also seeing the market is they're just generally saying it's a little too early to tell. But I did hear from about 3 different sources, from DAT and from Reliance and others, that actually the actual hard enforcement date isn't even happening yet.
It's June, right?
No, they said April 18th. The 18th is, and I guess that makes it exactly like 5 months from, or 4 months from December 18th. That's what some are saying. And others are saying that even then, what they're expecting to happen over like a 30-day-ish period is a kind of the short-term disruption, which will be a disruption, but it's going to mainly be from these smaller owner-operators and carriers that have not complied up until the very last date, and after that. They expect to see kind of a different medium term, like it really won't play out for another 60 to 90 days, but we will see it, and it's a huge deal.
Because the bottom line is, getting pulled over by the state trooper is still a fairly rare event. So even if you're not compliant, how long can you go? Yeah. Before someone notices? Who knows?
And one thing I'm curious about, which I haven't, and we need to maybe do a little more investigative journalism on, is how state by state by state by state, how much are they going to be enforcing it, and will that create a super varied response? You
always hear about Indiana being a super strict state on FMCSA regulations. There are other states.
And I've heard Oregon has long since been trying to do it as well. But it's
spotty. But what's interesting about the market right now, so just because spot rates are not moving a lot doesn't mean, for one, that the price of freight has gone down, because it hasn't. It's still very expensive. It doesn't mean that demand has gone down, because the economic fundamentals are still very strong. We're still seeing, for example, record port traffic coming in.
Yeah. And so
what happened was that shippers said, we want to tamp down volatility in the spot rate market because it hurts us. Okay. So we're going to lock down these carriers by giving them the big rate increases they want, so that they'll work our contract freight and they won't reject it, so we then have to go to the spot market. So that's what's happened. The money is still being spent. There's still plenty of money to be made. It's just not, right now, the shipper's strategy to control fluctuations in the spot market is working again for now.
Interesting. Hadn't thought about that end of the spectrum in as much detail. What we're already segueing into actually is the capacity crunch in general.
Right.
And
so you were at TIA out in beautiful Palm Desert, Palm Springs, and the wonderfully arid and sunny Coachella Valley of Southern California.
You know it.
You heard a lot about the capacity crunch. Why don't you tell us what the conversation was
Loved
like.
it. It's, I'm still kind of floating out here. That's why I'm drinking Scatterbrain. I'm still on Pacific time. I have no idea what time it is right now. Apparently not the date either. But yeah, just flew in late last night. So beautiful out there. People at the TIA conference, which is the only conference for 3PLs, are there. My general sense of it is that they're relationship people. Because they're working on it from both ends, all ends of the spectrum. They don't have the huge overhead usually that carriers have to deal with.
Right. They don't have assets, right?
Right, in general, and they're bringing it all together. It was super fun and super interesting to get a sense of things. One of the general trend was that there obviously is a capacity crunch, and it's being called unprecedented by the data heads and analysts.
Yep.
It's a capacity crunch unlike anything anyone has seen. And
right. They used to, when the second, the back half of 2017 hit and things started getting crazy. They were comparing it to 2005, but by December, January, they're basically saying, okay, it's blown 2005 out of the water. There really is no comparison.
Unprecedented, and no matter whether you're intermodal, driver care, they're beginning to say this isn't seasonal. This is going to last and persist the entire year. They're talking about all kinds of things. Damon Langley from TMW, he said, look, the good news is we picked up 19,000 drivers last year. The bad news is that we're still about 50,000 short. He talked about things like, driver pay is getting higher and will, but that's not the only solution. He was like, look, it's a tough, grueling job. And I wouldn't be surprised, no one else should be, if, drivers are getting 100,000 per year. It's not an unrealistic number. He said, certainly expect a 15 to 20% increase in the next 18 months. At least it wouldn't be surprising.
That would be double the rate of the past 3 years.
Oh, would it? Well,
they got about
significant.
They got about a 15% raise in the past 3 years. So another 15% in the next 18 months would be twice that.
And his overall, without getting into the weeds, his overall. I mean, we can get into the weeds in other episodes, but his key to retention is it's all about the way you onboard the trucker. He's like,
interesting. What's that mean?
It was like, I think just like, I don't know all the details of it, but he's like, if you can get them past 6 weeks, like if you can get them to last 6 weeks, you can get them, to last 3 months. And if you can get them to stay 3 months, you've got them for 6 months. And if you can get them to stay 6 months, you can usually get them to stay a year. And he was like, and then on to 2 years. If you can get them to 2 years, you've got them.
The longer they last, the less likely it is that they leave.
Right. And he had like...
So it sounds like it's all really about the hire itself. It's about
making sure of it.
And making sure you get the right person, someone who's qualified, but also suited for the lifestyle in some ways.
Suited, that's a good point. Suited for the lifestyle, knowing what you're getting into, treating them with respect, treating them with the fair pay.
Paying them, listening to them.
I think shippers the detention thing that's solvable. Like HOS, is that going to happen anytime? It's a little bit out of our control. How do you, what's the regulatory body's going to do? But for sure, it seems like it's a solvable problem, like the detention aspect of things. Again,
for sure,
staying high level.
Right. And I think data from the ELDs is going to really start exposing shippers. The inefficient shippers who are horrible at loading and unloading people. Everyone's going to know who they are because we know we can look at the GPS of your truck and see how long it's been sitting there. You start adding all that up, then all of a sudden people say, "Hey, look, we know it's going to take you an average of 3 hours to unload me. We're going to start charging you more per mile."
Absolutely. I mean, we just talked, I think, last episode about Convoy starting to do that with their app, or is it? Yeah, it's Convoy. Yeah. It'll start happening. It's
just a matter of time because the pressure is on the whole economy really with the rising transportation costs, and something's what has to give. I mean, I feel like carriers are operating on razor thin margins. the ones that can and have the money to have really invested in technology to streamline their operations and, pursue squeeze every little bit of value they can out of their enterprise. Shippers have been lazy because they can be.
Yes, and
so
now
the pressure's
crunch is
on
on them.
And now
the crazy capacity crunch.
Right. When you have a tight capacity crunch, when carriers have pricing power in the market, meaning that carriers, now carriers are being courted by shippers. It's not.
That's right.
It's not the truck who's
the way
going
the
out.
pendulum is swung.
It's not the truck who's going out and looking for freight. It's the shipper who needs to find a truck, and so now they have to perform. And one of the interesting things about, Amazon, for example, that I think has been slow to realize in the business community is basically that people will pay a premium for better service. There are things on Amazon that cost more than they would in a store or on some native e-commerce site, but if you know that you're going to get it in 2 days, if you know where the package is, if it's easy to buy, people will pay 30% extra for a lot of things.
I don't know the extent to which that's true. That sounds like a debate for another topic because
the point is,
a lot of data says that we don't want to pay for for anything other than free shipping.
But you're paying for free shipping in the price of the actual product.
Well, it's a hidden cost. Then.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And so the idea is that transportation and logistics can be a point of differentiation. A shipper can say, we move our stuff efficiently with visibility. We get it to you when we.
I like that,
we're
and
honest
I hope
about
that they
it.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that's a good thesis. Another talking point. In the meantime, speaking of intermediaries and 3PLs, in today's news, XPO joins the digital freight booking push.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
It's interesting. I mean, they've had a wave of publicity recently. So XPO Logistics, it's the Bradley Jacobs show and story, right? Mm-hmm. This is the guy who, before he was in trucking and logistics, he consolidated waste management, waste hauling,
And they're huge.
Starting small. Yeah, and the way they've grown, though, is by buying other companies and adding.
That's good. Some good background.
He invested about $63 million of his own money I want to say it's like 10 years ago. And now the company's doing like $12 billion.
That's not bad.
Worth about $12 billion. And so they're huge. And there's an interesting Donald Broughton quote. He said, in the 90s, FedEx was a technology company in the guise of a transportation company. Today, that's true of XPO Logistics. And maybe this new platform release is more evidence of that. Why don't you tell us about it, Chad?
Well, I mean, the news of the day is that XPO is just basically the latest transportation company to offer customers this online freight marketplace, bringing their big investment to the company's obviously huge ready-made list of shippers and carriers to fire back at the upstarts. Which, is kind of a strong thesis, I think, that some of these huge places have to offer. Like, a lot of the new entrants to the brokerage space, especially, is maybe they have a bent toward technology, but they're no different than any other brokerage, except for they don't have a huge list of clients and customers. And so, the XPOs of the world have a massive incumbent advantage of basically having their own freight, and they just need to get some tech, right? Why can't they?
Do we have a sense of what this platform XPO Connect really is? What's behind it? Is it just a cool user interface that's just like a screen and the back end hasn't really changed, or are people getting a service that they really haven't? Are XPO's customers getting something they didn't have before?
Here's what I would say, based upon a little investigative analysis from our own Zach Strickland. He points out that the disadvantage that the incumbents have is they have to go through red tape. They have this infrastructure of maybe where a good idea is going to get squashed for one reason or another because of the competing interests of the company itself. And so, like I would say that the advantage of the new entrants is that they are light and they're agile and they actually do understand design and they understand tech. And this is where this is their bag, and they can make these things happen. And if you're big and heavy and lumbering and you think you've got this massive advantage, do you necessarily invest in the ways that you should to actually be badass?
Right.
And it strikes me so far that, they're making headlines and they've got a huge network, but I'm not sensing badassery.
Right. So the question will be, going forward, and we'd love to hear from our listeners about their experiences with XPO Connect. But basically, is this just a nice way to access and use the XPO services that you are already paying for? Or does it really represent like kind of a tech-driven synergy of all of these different entities that they've been buying up and rolling up? Are they really putting the pieces together, or is this just kind of a
And if they are, I think it will win because they already have such an established infrastructure. Right. Last big story of the week is that reefer rates climb out of Salinas, Central, and Imperial Valley. You did a deep dive into this. Can you give us like the highlights?
Yeah. So a little bit earlier this episode, we were talking about how spot market volatility has been fairly quiet, largely due to the large contract rate increases that carriers have enjoyed thus far that are still working for them.
Yeah.
We don't know how long that's going to last. So if you're looking for upside action in the spot market,
okay,
which we were this week, we definitely found it for temperature controlled trucks or reefers coming out of California. The California Kush, right?
That's where I just came from. Love California.
So we looked at three big agricultural regions in California. The first one, so going from like north to south, the first one was the Salinas Valley outside of San Jose. That's as far as the DAT goes, that's the San Francisco market. We looked at the Central Valley, which, again, according to DAT, is the Fresno market. And then we looked at the Imperial Valley, which is really in sort of extreme southeastern California, which they call the Ontario market. Sort of far east of San Diego.
Didn't know that.
Bordering Arizona. It's really interesting. I mean, like the Imperial Valley, not that many people know about it, but it sort of straddles this lake called the Salton Sea. It's fed by it's basically the farmers irrigate all the crops with the Colorado River. It produces $1 billion worth of agriculture a year.
Is that sustainable?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. Oh, but the poor Colorado River.
Anyway. The good news, so there's a lot of action for reefer trucks hauling produce out of those three areas.
Seasonal.
It's seasonal, but and the California harvest season is long. It's already started, but as we move into April, March, April, May, more crops are being are coming through. I know, for example, the strawberry harvest is already way ahead of schedule of what it was in 2017.
And this is a good thing.
It's a good thing, yeah. It's a place where spot rates are still going up. They're climbing, we're talking 20, 30 cents over previous months.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is huge. All right. Well, those are the headlines of the week. And now it is time for Chad and JP to try to successfully run down the rest of the week's stories in 2 minutes or less. Do we often accomplish this? Well, it's debatable.
Barry is shaking his head.
Barry speaks quietly. But so let's see. But when he does, people listen. Big deal or little deal? Okay, JP, are you ready? And can we officially begin playing at this very moment right now?
Go.
How has the flattening yield curve affected trucking? Is it a big deal or little deal?
It's a big deal because it raises the cost of debt for financing trucks, for financing used trucks, for brokers' margins and brokers' lines of credit. If it inverts, that's a recession, and that's a huge deal.
Airbus to offer lower deck passenger sleeper berths amidst cargo holds. Big deal or little deal?
It's a little deal. Basically, what this means is that you can have an apartment in a cargo hold of a big plane if you're going from here to Europe. It's great if you have kids, but it's a small deal overall.
Aluminum steel tariffs driving up raw material costs for trucks, trailers. Big deal or little deal?
I think it's a big deal. We're talking about honestly, we're talking about a 5% increase in price on trailers, but the thing with commodified metal prices is that even talk of them can move the price a lot. So it's a big deal.
Okay.
Modex is still waiting for weigh-in-motion technology to be fully adapted in the U.S. Big deal or little deal?
For now, little deal. It can't be used in enforcement. Weight-in-motion tech is super awesome. It will help with ELD enforcement. Every day of a driver's day is precious. Spending time waiting in the weigh station is not going to be good.
Experts speak on intermodal capacity challenges at TIA. Are those challenges a big deal or a little deal?
Well, the platform of the panelists might have not been that big of a deal, but what they were talking about was a big deal. When one railroad gets cold, the other starts sneezing. They had a huge amount of freight last year. They're trying to make capacity. They're growing, and that is a big deal.
It might have been a one-day protest at XPO Logistics location in Miami, but it was a lot longer in the making. Is that a big deal or a little deal?
Well, the particular incident is a little deal. Fewer than 20 of 45,000 North American employees participated in the Teamsters event, but overall it points to bigger deals in the labor market. And that'll do it for the big stories this week. As always, we go into more detail about each of the topics we've talked about today on our website, FreightWaves.com. We will continue to publish this podcast weekly, so be sure to subscribe to What the Truck on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. Also, make sure to leave us a review to let us know what you think of our new podcast.
And if you're into learning about technology that's shaping up the industry, you definitely want to be at Transparency 18 in Atlanta this May. Visit transparency18.com to learn more about the event.
That'll do it for today. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week on What the Truck.